You all know how I love film noir. I'm a fan of sordid, dark, and cynical crime stories, of morally compromised men and women, stories of murder, corruption, and double-cross that live in shades of gray. And these stories are typically located in contemporary urban environments like Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, and Chicago. However, there are some dark stories that exchange the contemporary setting for the historical and transport their tales of love and obsession, crime and murder to the past. And one of my favorite period noir films is 1945's Hangover Square, produced by 20th Century Fox and starring Laird Cregar, Linda Darnell, and George Sanders, with wonderfully dark and moody direction by John Brahm and a sinister and evocative score written by Bernard Hermann. Hangover Square immerses the viewer in an Edwardian nightmare.
I don't know where I've been or what I've done.
The film centers around George Harvey Bone, a gifted but troubled composer suffering from a condition that causes violent blackouts, triggered by a combination of stress and discordant sound. These episodes render him unable to recall his actions during the blackout period, leaving him confused and tormented.
It's happened again.
I don't know where I've been or what I've done.
But while George is unable to recall his actions, we know the terrible things he's done.
I don't know where I've been or what I've done.
George is also working on a concerto, and he's mentored by conductor Sir Henry Chapman and his beautiful and friendly daughter Barbara, who makes no secret of her affection for George. George has shared the secret of his condition with Barbara.
I'm going to Scotland Yard. I know of someone there, Dr. Middleton.
But his visit rouses suspicion.
If you have a couple of plainclothes men available, I've just had someone here I think should be followed in connection with that Fulham case.
But after one fun night at the music halls, George's life becomes entangled with Netta Longden. Netta is a beautiful and manipulative music hall singer who sees George's talent for composition as a way to fast-track her career.
Is he important?
Well, he's a well-known composer. He's quite important.
She uses her beauty and his obvious attraction to her to get him to write her a series of songs that become extremely popular.
I've changed my way of living, my way of loving.
Those songs make Netta extremely popular. But George becomes obsessed, and Netta uses George's vulnerability and his feelings for her against him, and this pushes him deeper into a psychological abyss.
Sometimes you can be an awful bore.
Driven by both internal and external pressures, George spirals further into madness with the inability to control his violent tendencies, ultimately leading to tragedy. Hangover Square director John Brahm incorporates all the distinctive visual elements that we have come to associate with noir: stark contrast, shadows, skewed camera angles, fog and smoke, and tight framing and close-ups. Add to this that every scene in the film takes place at night. It is always dark, there are always shadows and fog and the flickering of gaslights. These visual choices align Hangover Square with the aesthetic language of classic noir. Another aspect of noir is its focus on morally ambiguous characters, often trapped in a web of deceit, desire, and crime. Laird Cregar's nuanced performance captures a man on the edge. He's able to believably play the duality of George, who, when unaffected, is kind, gentle, and soft-spoken.
No, I look after her, and then you can come round any time you wish to see her.
But when he's triggered, he becomes terrifying and menacing.
George!
Taking a funny, conniving against my
George, stop! Are you crazy? George, hold it!
Laird Cregar, the star of Hangover Square, is a pretty obscure figure. Those of us who know his career are familiar with him in films like Blood and Sand.
If this is death in the afternoon, she is death in the evening.
The Lodger, This Gun for Hire, and I Wake Up Screaming, among others. His Hollywood career only lasted 5 years, with appearances in 16 films. But in those 5 years, he became an acting force to be reckoned with. Born in 1913 in Philadelphia, from childhood, Cregar wanted to be an actor. As he grew into his 6'3", almost 300-pound frame, he worked on a freighter and then as a bouncer. His big break came when he staged a one-man show where he starred as Oscar Wilde at the El Capitan Theater. He was a sensation, and his performances brought in the Hollywood crowd, including frenemy of the channel, Darryl F. Zanuck. At 22, Cregar signed with Zanuck and 20th Century Fox, who promised to provide him with a variety of roles and not typecast him. Where have we heard that before? John Garfield, Alan Ladd, Tyrone Power. Yeah. Cregar often referred to himself as a grotesque, meaning he saw himself as comically or repulsively ugly and distorted, mostly because of his weight, which is very sad because his negative view of himself would lead him to miss the significance of the roles and opportunities right in front of him. He wanted to be more than the villain. He wanted to be more than the heavy, because he was so talented. He wrote plays and composed music, dabbled in set design, and he did have a huge screen presence, but that presence was not only in his size, but in his ability to really bring to life these characters, often villains and sinister men, that he was assigned to play. Through his facial expressions, his mannerisms, his intensity, the choices he made, and the cadence of speech, and the way he walked, he was magnetic on screen, and he was an excellent character actor. A 1942 profile of Cregar in the Salt Lake City Tribune had this to say: "After 4 pictures already released and 2 more just completed, this new star on the menace horizon is the casting department's joy. They think of him now as quickly as of Charles Laughton. Cregar's versatility may give Laughton a run for his money." Hey, that's not too shabby. In 1941's Blood and Sand, directed by Ruben Mamoulian, he plays the pompous and fickle critic who really adores Tyrone Power's bullfighter Juan Gallardo. In This Gun for Hire, he's the double-crossing William Gates who hires Alan Ladd's hitman Raven, only to turn on him and set the cops on his tail. Cregar's performance showcases the ability to convey a sense of cool calculation, but also spineless simpering.
I can't stand violence.
In I Wake Up Screaming, he's an obsessive cop stalking Victor Mature for the murder of a young model. Only he's too obsessed with Mature, and he himself has a twisted connection to the murdered girl. But it was 1944's The Lodger that cemented Cregar as a creeping, terrifying menace. In The Lodger, directed by Hangover Square's John Brom, Cregar plays Mr. Slade, who by night stalks the streets of Whitechapel as Jack the Ripper.
Whitechapel, murder, the Ripper spring scene.
His performance is daring and terrifying. He plays a man who we never see kill, but we know is a killer. Variety wrote in its 1944 review, "It is Laird Cregar's picture. As the Ripper, he gives an impressive performance. It is a relentless, at times pathetic character as he pursues his self-appointed task of avenging his brother. His precise diction and almost studied poise make his characterization all the more impressive." Ida Bell Hicks, writing in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, said of Cregar, "Since he began his movie career in Hollywood not so many years ago, he has rivaled Bela Lugosi when it comes to spine chillers." But as amazing an actor as Cregar was, he started to hate the inevitable typecasting as the bad guy. Cregar set out to transform himself into a leading man. And for him, that meant losing weight and plastic surgery. Hangover Square represented a chance for Cregar to show he could be the romantic leading man. His character George has 2 main love interests, Faye Marlowe's Barbara and Linda Darnell's Netta. And Cregar, although initially unhappy with the script, saw the possibility of this role to showcase his desirability to the female audience. He began his plan for self-improvement, calling it the Beautiful Man Campaign, and started dieting and taking amphetamines. He rapidly lost over 100 pounds. He also scheduled abdominal surgery to limit his food intake. But the cruel twist in all of this was, at Fox, Cregar was never destined to grace the screen as a romantic leading man. Fox had Tyrone Power, John Payne, Don Amici, and Dana Andrews. What they didn't have was a Laird Cregar. The vision they held for him was that of a formidable presence, an imposing antagonist, a villainous force befitting his commanding physicality. And so the split between his dreams and the future he saw for himself and reality had tragic consequences. On December 14, 1944, Cregar died of a heart attack a week after his surgery. He never saw Hangover Square, which is arguably his very best role. Photoplay's review of Hangover Square said, "We're going to miss Laird Cregar. He was one of the best of the younger character actors. Hangover Square is another classic murder resulting from a twisted mind, with Cregar giving a superb performance." And Cregar is excellent in the film. I think he does sell the romantic scenes. You understand why Barbara would be attracted to a sweet and considerate man like George. And he really sizzles with Darnell. They have a real chemistry. So while he might not have had a role like Larry Darrell in The Razor's Edge in his future, he really would have been guaranteed interesting character work. Modern Screen eulogized him in their February 1945 issue, writing, "At 28 years of age, Laird was a young giant who had never known life or love or marriage or home or mental peace or happiness. He joked about his great weight and size, but it made him unhappy. He said once, 'No matter how nice people are to me, I'm still something of an oddity to them, and being an oddity isn't fun.'" There are 8 million stories in the cinema cities. This has been one.